All right, buckle up, everyone, because today we're taking a deep dive into something that's both fascinating and a little bit unnerving: cybersecurity trends for 2025.
And it's not just your typical update. We've got a whole stack of expert predictions, reports from leading security firms, insights from industry veterans.
And let me tell you, it looks like the future of digital security is going to be a wild ride.
Yeah, technology's evolving faster than ever, creating amazing opportunities, but also opening the door to some seriously sophisticated new threats.
Exactly. And that's why we're doing this deep dive, right? To equip you with the knowledge to navigate this new terrain and keep your digital life secure.
Exactly. It's all about being prepared and understanding what's coming down the pipeline.
So let's unpack this. Our sources point to three major areas we need to wrap our heads around:
Okay, I'm listening.
AI-driven attacks, quantum computing threats, and those ever-evolving tactics of ransomware gangs. Each one is like a whole episode in itself, but we're going to try to hit the highlights today.
Sounds like a plan.
Let's start with AI, shall we?
Sure, let's dive in.
AI, it's transforming practically every industry, and it seems cybercrime is no exception.
Oh, absolutely. AI is a game changer, and not always in a good way when it comes to cybersecurity.
One report actually used the term hyper-personalized phishing, which sounds pretty intense.
Yeah, it is. Imagine this. You get an email seemingly from a coworker.
Careful.
It's referencing a project you're both on, even using their usual tone.
Sounds pretty convincing.
Right. It's all too easy to click a link or open an attachment without thinking twice.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's way beyond those generic "you won the lottery" emails we used to get. This is getting seriously personal.
And it goes beyond email. Think about deep fakes.
Deep fakes.
Yeah, those AI-generated videos or audio clips that can convincingly mimic anyone.
Right, I've heard of those.
So what if you got a call seemingly from your boss urgently asking for confidential data?
Oh, gosh. I can see where this is going.
Or a video message from a client spreading misinformation? The potential for damage is huge.
It's like AI is being used to manipulate trust on a whole new level. It's pretty unsettling.
Exactly. It's not just about technology anymore. It's about understanding how AI can be used to exploit human psychology.
Okay, so it's not just about phishing anymore. It's about AI being used to deceive people in a much more sophisticated way.
Exactly. And here's where it gets even more complex. AI can actually orchestrate entire multi-vector attacks.
Multi-vector attacks, what does that mean?
Well, imagine a coordinated assault, like a digital blitzkrieg.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
So AI launches a phishing campaign while simultaneously bombarding a website with a DDoS attack, distributed denial of service, flooding it with traffic.
Right.
And all this while maybe exploiting a newly discovered vulnerability in some software.
Wow. So it's like AI is becoming the puppet master, coordinating these complex attacks that are harder to defend against.
Exactly. It's like fighting a war on multiple fronts, and the enemy is invisible and incredibly intelligent.
So this all sounds pretty doom and gloom. Is there any hope of fighting back against these AI-powered attacks?
There is, thankfully. You see, the good guys are also using AI to level the playing field.
Okay, so it's like a digital arms race.
Exactly. Both sides are leveraging the latest AI advancements, trying to outmaneuver each other.
So how does this AI versus AI cybersecurity battle actually play out? Can you give us some specifics?
Sure. For one, we have AI-powered threat detection systems. They can analyze massive amounts of data, spotting those subtle patterns and anomalies that might indicate an AI-generated attack.
So it's kind of like using AI to spot the work of other AI.
Precisely. It's like having a digital detective who can sift through mountains of evidence and uncover the clues that humans might miss.
That's pretty impressive. Are there any other tools in this AI-powered arsenal?
Another crucial tool is continuous authentication using behavioral biometrics.
Behavioral biometrics. That sounds interesting.
Essentially, it analyzes how you interact with your devices, your typing speed, your mouse movements to verify your identity in real time.
So even if someone steals my password, they can't perfectly mimic my typing style.
Exactly. It's like a digital fingerprint that's unique to you.
That's reassuring. Any other ways AI is being used to boost security?
We're also seeing more flexible security policies that adapt dynamically based on real-time threat data.
Dynamic policies. Tell me more.
So instead of static rules, these policies can adjust on the fly, responding to new threats as they emerge.
So it's like having a security system that learns and evolves as the threats become more sophisticated.
Exactly. It's about being agile and adaptable in the face of constantly changing threats.
This is all fascinating stuff, but it seems like AI is doing all the heavy lifting here. What about the humans?
Don't worry, we're not obsolete yet. In fact, Training security teams to work effectively alongside AI models is essential.
So it's a partnership. Humans and AI working together to build a more robust defense.
Precisely. Humans bring intuition, creativity, and the ability to think outside the box, while AI brings speed, scale, and analytical power.
It's like the best of both worlds, combining human ingenuity with machine intelligence.
Exactly. And this partnership extends even further with the concept of adversarial AI training.
Adversarial AI training, what's that all about?
Well, it's like giving your AI a crash course in cyber warfare.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How does that work?
You essentially simulate attacks, exposing your AI systems to all sorts of malicious behavior so they learn to recognize and respond effectively.
So it's like giving your digital bodyguard some intense combat training. Get them ready for the real deal.
Exactly. The more your AI systems see, the better prepared they'll be to face real-world threats.
So the key takeaway here is that AI is going to be a dominant force in the cybersecurity landscape of 2025, both as a weapon and a shield.
Absolutely. It's a double-edged sword, and the side that wields it most effectively will have a significant advantage.
Okay, so we've covered AI-driven attacks, which is a lot to process, but we need to move on to another big topic, quantum computing.
All right, let's talk quantum. It's still in its early stages, but it has the potential to disrupt cybersecurity in a major way.
The reports mentioned its ability to crack traditional encryption methods. That sounds pretty alarming.
It is. Quantum computers operate on entirely different principles compared to the computers we use today.
So it's not just a matter of them being faster or more powerful, it's something completely different.
Exactly. They possess immense computational power, capable of cracking many of the encryption algorithms we rely on to secure our data.
So does this mean all our online activity is going to be vulnerable once quantum computing becomes mainstream? Like, should we just give up on online banking and shopping altogether?
Not necessarily. The cybersecurity community is actively working on solutions,
Okay, that's good to hear. What kind of solutions are we talking about?
particularly quantum-resistant encryption algorithms.
So basically, creating a new type of encryption that quantum computers can't crack.
That's the goal. They're specifically designed to withstand attacks from both classical and quantum computers.
Okay, that makes sense. But how far along are we with this quantum-safe encryption?
It's still under development, but it's an area of intense research and collaboration. The National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST, has been leading the effort to identify and standardize these algorithms.
So NIST is kind of like the authority on quantum-safe encryption.
Exactly. They've identified several promising candidates,
Like what?
like lattice-based cryptography, code-based cryptography, and multivariate polynomial cryptography.
Those are some serious tongue twisters. But the key is, these are the encryption methods believed to be resistant to quantum attacks.
Yes. And organizations need to start preparing for this transition to quantum-safe encryption now. It's not something you can implement overnight.
So where do they even begin? This sounds like a pretty daunting task.
Well, the first step is understanding their current cryptographic dependencies. They need to take a complete inventory of all systems, applications, and devices that use encryption.
So figuring out where all their sensitive data is stored and how it's protected.
Exactly. And then they need to start implementing those quantum-resistant algorithms, replacing those vulnerable algorithms like RSA and ECC with these quantum-safe alternatives.
It's like swapping out an old flimsy lock for a high-security, quantum-proof vault. What else can organizations do to prepare for this quantum future?
While rotating encryption keys more frequently is crucial, shorter life cycles for those keys can help minimize the window of vulnerability, especially as quantum computing technology advances.
Okay, that makes sense. Anything else?
And cryptographic protocols like TLS, which secure our web traffic, and VPNs need to be updated to use these quantum-resistant encryption methods as well.
It's a pretty involved process, but considering the potential impact of quantum computing, it's definitely better to be safe than sorry.
Absolutely. And it's not a one-time fix. Organizations need to stay informed about the latest advancements in both quantum computing and cryptography.
So continuous learning and adaptation are key here.
Precisely. And that's where threat intelligence comes in. Understanding how adversaries might exploit quantum capabilities is crucial for developing effective countermeasures.
Okay, so we've covered AI-driven attacks and the looming threat of quantum computing. We've been through a lot. What other cybersecurity trends should we have on our radar for 2025?
Well, unfortunately, ransomware isn't going anywhere. In fact, the report suggests that ransomware tactics are going to become even more insidious.
Ugh, ransomware. If I thought it was bad now, it's only going to get worse.
It's certainly a concern. The reports highlight a trend of attackers increasingly targeting the supply chain.
Targeting the supply chain. What do they mean by that?
They're going after the weakest link, often third-party vendors, to disrupt entire industries. Think about it. One compromised vendor can have a ripple effect across multiple organizations.
That's a good point. It's like a domino effect of cyber chaos.
Exactly. So strong third-party risk management is going to be more important than ever. Organizations need to carefully vet their vendors and ensure they have strong security practices in place.
Right. You can't just trust blindly that everyone in your supply chain has their cybersecurity ducks in a row.
No, you can't. And that's not the only tactic ransomware attackers are using. The reports also mentioned a concerning trend of attacks leveraging regulatory compliance.
Regulatory compliance. How so?
Attackers are threatening to report data breaches, whether real or fabricated, to regulatory bodies.
Wow. So they're adding an extra layer of pressure on victims to pay the ransom, playing on those fears of regulatory fines and penalties.
Exactly. It's a devious tactic, and it underscores the need for organizations to have a comprehensive incident response plan in place.
So they need to be prepared to handle not just the technical aspects of a ransomware attack, but also the legal and regulatory fallout.
Exactly. It's a multifaceted challenge, and organizations need to be prepared on all fronts.
So staying ahead of the curve in terms of both cybersecurity and compliance is going to be crucial.
Absolutely. It's a complex landscape, and organizations need to be proactive and vigilant. Now, let's shift gears for a moment and talk about the evolving landscape of cloud and Web3 security.
Okay, cloud security I get, but Web3, that's a bit more unfamiliar territory for me. Can you give me a quick rundown?
Sure. Web3 is essentially the next iteration of the internet, characterized by decentralization, blockchain technology, and things like cryptocurrencies and NFTs.
Right, I've had those terms thrown around a lot lately. But how does Web3 relate to cybersecurity?
Well, as more organizations adopt cloud technologies and explore Web3 applications, it creates new attack surfaces and security challenges.
So the bad guys are always looking for new vulnerabilities to exploit, new ways to get their hands on our data and money.
Exactly. The reports highlighted the need for robust security measures in both cloud environments and the decentralized finance, or DeFi space.
DeFi, that's another one I've heard a lot about lately.
It's a big part of Web3, and it's all about using blockchain technology to create financial systems that are outside the control of traditional banks and institutions. Sounds interesting, but also potentially risky.
It can be, which is why security is so important. For cloud security, proactive measures to address misconfigurations and the adoption of strong compliance frameworks are essential. And in the DeFi space, smart contract security and the protection of blockchain infrastructures and private keys are paramount.
It sounds like navigating this new digital landscape requires a whole new set of security skills and expertise.
It does. And it's not just about technical expertise. Organizations also need to foster a culture of security awareness among their employees.
Right. Because human error is often the weakest link in the cybersecurity chain.
Exactly. Regular security awareness training can go a long way in preventing those costly mistakes.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. AI-driven attacks, quantum computing threats, evolving ransomware tactics, and the challenges of securing the cloud and Web3. It's a lot to take in.
It is. But remember, knowledge is power. By understanding these trends, you're already one step ahead of the game. Right. So what's the bottom line here? What can listeners do to prepare for the cybersecurity challenges of 2025?
Well, based on the reports, I would say there are a few key takeaways. First, invest in advanced AI-driven security tools. These tools can help you enhance threat detection and response capabilities.
So it's like we said earlier, using AI to fight AI.
Precisely. Second, start preparing for those quantum threats by transitioning to quantum-safe encryption standards and regularly assessing your cryptographic vulnerabilities.
No time to waste on that one. What else?
Third, strengthen your cloud security by implementing those proactive measures we discussed earlier, and make sure you're adhering to robust compliance frameworks.
Got it. Secure the cloud, secure the future.
Exactly. And don't forget about threat intelligence. Collaborate with industry peers and leverage real-time information sharing to stay ahead of emerging threats.
It's all about staying informed and connected. Any other pearls of wisdom before we wrap up this part of our deep dive?
One final but crucial point. Don't overlook the basics. Cyber hygiene practices like regular security awareness training, Timely patch management and comprehensive risk assessments remain absolutely essential.
Right, because even the most sophisticated security system is vulnerable if someone leaves the digital door wide open.
That's a good way to put it. So, while the cybersecurity landscape in 2025 may seem daunting, by being proactive, informed, and prepared, you can mitigate risks and build a more resilient digital future.
I like the sound of that, a resilient digital future. It's not just about playing defense, it's about building a stronger, more secure foundation for everything we do online.
Exactly. And that's where the real power lies.
All right, folks, that's it for part one of our deep dive into cybersecurity trends for 2025.
We've covered a lot of ground, but there's still more to come.
Join us in part two, where we'll delve even deeper into this evolving threat landscape and explore even more strategies for staying ahead of the curve.
We'll see you there. Welcome back to our cybersecurity deep dive.
Okay, so we've covered AI and quantum computing, two huge forces transforming the cybersecurity landscape. But let's be honest, even in this high-tech future, some things never change.
What about good old-fashioned malware? Is that still a threat we need to worry about in 2025?
Absolutely. In fact, the report suggests that certain types of malware are becoming even more insidious.
More insidious, huh? You've got my attention. What's got you worried?
One that caught my eye is info-stealer malware, and it's exactly what it sounds like.
Okay, info stealer malware. So it steals information, but what kind of information are we talking about? What's it after?
It's after anything valuable it can get its digital hands on. Login credentials for your bank accounts, social media, work platforms, credit card details, personal files, even cryptocurrency wallets. If it's valuable to you, it's valuable to these cyber criminals.
So it's like a digital pickpocket, sifting through your virtual pockets for anything it can grab. That's a great analogy. And what makes infostealer malware particularly dangerous is its stealth. It can operate undetected for a long time, silently copying your data in the background while you remain completely oblivious.
That's a bit unsettling, knowing that something could be lurking on your computer, stealing your information without you even realizing it. What can we do to protect ourselves from these stealthy data thieves?
The reports emphasize the importance of a multi-layered approach to security, starting with robust endpoint protection.
Endpoint protection. Okay, what exactly does that involve?
That means having up-to-date antivirus software, firewalls that act as a barrier between your device and the outside world, and intrusion detection systems that can spot suspicious activity.
So it's like building a fortress around your devices with multiple layers of defense to keep those intruders out.
Exactly. But it's not just about technology. You also need to be incredibly vigilant about those phishing attempts, which are often how infostealer malware gets its foot in the door.
Right, those cleverly disguised emails and messages that try to trick you into clicking a link or opening an attachment.
Precisely. So always double check the sender's address, be wary of any links that look suspicious, hover your mouse over them to see the actual URL, and never, ever open attachments from sources you don't trust.
Good advice.
Hmm.
Even if it looks like it's from someone you know, if something seems off, it's better to be safe than sorry.
Absolutely. Trust your gut and verify it through another channel if something seems fishy.
Okay, so strong endpoint protection and a healthy dose of skepticism are key. Now, another threat the reports mentioned was compromised identities. How is that going to be a bigger problem in 2025?
It's a combination of factors. The rise of hybrid work environments, with people working remotely from various locations and devices, often using unsecured networks, creates more opportunities for attackers.
So all those home offices and coffee shop work sessions are potentially putting our identities at risk. Makes sense.
Yeah, in a way, yes. It expands the attack surface. That's why robust identity and access management, or IAM systems, are going to be mission critical.
Okay, IAM, what exactly does that entail?
Think of it as a digital gatekeeper for your sensitive data and systems. It involves things like strong, unique passwords for every account, multi-factor authentication, where you need a second form of verification, like a code sent to your phone, and role-based access controls, which limit what people can access based on their job or responsibilities.
So it's like having a strict bouncer at the door of your network, making sure only authorized individuals get in and that they can only access what they're supposed to.
Exactly. And the report stressed that organizations need to implement strong IAM systems, not just for their internal employees, but also for any third-party vendors or partners they work with.
Right, because a weak link anywhere in the chain can compromise everyone.
Precisely. Now, shifting gears a bit, the reports also highlighted a concerning trend that I think will resonate with anyone who's ever struggled to keep their software up to date.
Okay, I'm listening. Tell me about this trend.
It's the shrinking time frame between when a vulnerability is discovered and when it's exploited by attackers.
Okay, so let's break this down. We're talking about those software flaws that hackers can use to break into systems, right?
Exactly. In the past, there might have been weeks or even months between the time a vulnerability was disclosed and when cybercriminals figured out how to exploit it. That gave organizations some breathing room to patch those holes.
But now it's a race against time.
Exactly. That window is shrinking rapidly. In some cases, it's down to mere days or even
Wow,
hours.
that's a serious time crunch. How can organizations possibly keep up with that pace?
It requires a proactive and automated approach. The reports emphasize the need for automated patch management systems that can deploy security updates as soon as they're available without requiring manual intervention. And real-time vulnerability assessments are crucial to constantly scan for those weaknesses and prioritize the most critical ones.
So it's like having a security team that's always on high alert, constantly patching those holes before the attackers can even find them.
That's a good way to visualize it. And remember those AI-driven security tools we discussed earlier. They can play a key role here. They can analyze vast amounts of data to identify potential vulnerabilities, predict which ones are most likely to be exploited, and even automate the patching process.
Okay, so AI can be our ally in this race against time. Now, let's talk about, well, I guess you could call it the elephant in the room, or maybe the dragon in the data center, those geopolitical sober threats.
Right, the big players.
The reports mention that state-sponsored actors are going to continue to be a major concern in 2025.
Yes, unfortunately, that's the reality we live in. Nation-states are increasingly using cyber attacks as a tool to achieve their political and economic objectives. It's a new kind of warfare fought in the digital realm.
And it's not just about stealing information anymore. We're talking about disrupting critical infrastructure, interfering with elections, spreading propaganda, even launching cyber attacks that can cause physical damage.
Exactly. The stakes are incredibly high. The report specifically mentioned the big four threat actors: Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea. They're considered the most active and sophisticated players in this arena.
Each with their own motivations and targets, I imagine.
Absolutely. Russia, for example, has demonstrated its willingness to use cyber attacks for disruptive purposes, targeting critical infrastructure and democratic processes. China, on the other hand, is heavily focused on economic espionage, stealing intellectual property and trade secrets to gain a competitive advantage.
And what about Iran and North Korea? What are their main objectives?
Iran tends to target industries and individuals it perceives as hostile to its regime, and North Korea is primarily focused on financial gain, often through brazen cyber heists and ransomware attacks.
So a whole spectrum of cyber threats emanating from these state actors. It's a bit overwhelming. What can we do to protect ourselves against such powerful adversaries?
Well, awareness is the first line of defense. Understanding the tactics, techniques, and motivations of these state-sponsored actors is crucial. Knowledge is power, even in the face of such sophisticated opponents.
So we need to educate ourselves about the threat landscape and stay informed about their activities. Where can we get this information?
There are a lot of great resources out there, including reports from security firms, government advisories, and even news articles. It's about staying vigilant and keeping your finger on the pulse of the cybersecurity world.
And then it comes down to implementing those strong cybersecurity practices we've been discussing. Robust IAM systems, continuous monitoring and threat detection, timely patch management, threat intelligence, sharing all of these measures can help mitigate the risk of state-sponsored attacks.
Exactly. It's about making yourself a harder target, raising the bar for these attackers. They're going to go for the low-hanging fruit. So the more you can do to strengthen your defenses, the less likely you are to become a victim.
So while we might not have the same resources as a nation state, we can still make ourselves harder targets by following these best practices. We could level the playing field a bit.
Precisely. Now, the reports also highlighted a specific concern about Chinese threat actors. They're becoming increasingly adept at exploiting zero-day vulnerabilities.
Zero-day vulnerabilities, those are the software flaws that are unknown to the vendor,
Yeah.
right? Meaning there's no patch available to fix them.
Exactly. It's like a secret back door that hackers can slip through before anyone even knows it exists. And once a zero-day vulnerability is exploited, it can be incredibly difficult to defend against.
So how do we protect ourselves from something we don't even know exists? It seems like an impossible task.
It's definitely a challenge, but there are strategies we can employ. The reports emphasize the importance of a layered security approach, having multiple security mechanisms in place so even if one layer is breached, the others can still hold the line.
So it's like having a series of defenses, like a medieval castle with multiple walls and moats. You might breach one layer, but you've still got others to get through.
Exactly. Another key strategy is minimizing your attack surface. Reduce the number of potential entry points for hackers by keeping software up to date, disabling unnecessary features, and limiting access to sensitive systems. The fewer doors you leave open, the harder it is for those cyber intruders to get in.
Okay, makes sense. But you mentioned earlier that Chinese threat actors are also targeting embedded systems. What exactly are those?
They're the computer systems built into other devices. Things like routers, firewalls, industrial control systems, medical devices, basically, the computers that power our critical infrastructure.
So we're not just talking about our personal computers and smartphones anymore. It's about the systems that control our power grids,
Yeah.
transportation systems, hospitals, everything.
Exactly. And by targeting these embedded systems, attackers can potentially disrupt entire networks or even cause physical damage.
That's a pretty terrifying thought. What can we do to protect these critical systems, especially if they're often hidden away in the infrastructure we rely on?
Well, it starts with ensuring these embedded systems are properly secured and configured. Using strong passwords, keeping firmware up to date, and implementing access controls are all crucial. It's like locking the doors and windows of your house even if you think no one will ever find them.
So those same basic cyber hygiene practices we've been talking about apply to these embedded systems as well.
Absolutely. And continuous monitoring is essential. Organizations need to be constantly vigilant, watching for any signs of suspicious activity in these critical systems. Early detection can make all the difference in preventing a major incident.
Okay, so it seems like we're seeing a convergence of threats, whether it's AI-driven attacks, quantum computing, state-sponsored actors, or even the evolution of malware and vulnerabilities. It all comes down to having a strong security foundation and being proactive.
That's an excellent observation. You've hit the nail on the head. The key takeaway here is that while the cybersecurity landscape in 2025 will undoubtedly be challenging, it's not an impossible situation. By being proactive, informed, and prepared, we can mitigate these risks and build a more resilient digital future.
So it's not about being paralyzed by fear, it's about being empowered to take action and make informed decisions. We can do this.
Exactly. And that's what this deep dive is all about. Equipping you with the knowledge and insights you need to navigate this evolving landscape and protect yourself and your organization.
All right, folks, that's it for part 2 of our deep dive. We've explored a wide range of emerging threats, from the cunning stealth of infostealer malware to the high-stakes world of geopolitical cyber attacks. But don't worry, we're not leaving you hanging.
Join us in part 3, where we'll shift gears and focus on the solutions, strategies, and proactive measures you can take to navigate this complex cybersecurity landscape and build that resilient digital future we've been talking about. See you there.
All right, welcome back to our Cybersecurity Odyssey. We've explored some pretty daunting threats in parts 1 and 2, but now it's time to shift gears and talk about solutions. I'm feeling a little overwhelmed by all this, to be honest. Is there any hope of staying ahead of these evolving threats?
There is, absolutely. It's not about being invincible, it's about building resilience. Think of it like this. We're not trying to stop every single cyber attack, but to create a security posture that can withstand those attacks, minimize the damage, and allow us to bounce back quickly.
Resilience, I like that. It's a more realistic goal than trying to achieve perfect security, which, let's face it, is probably impossible. So where do we start? What are the key building blocks of a resilient cybersecurity strategy for 2025 and beyond?
Well, surprisingly, one of the most important tools in our arsenal is the very thing we've been discussing as a threat: artificial intelligence.
Hold on. I thought AI was the bad guy here. We've been talking about how it's going to supercharge cyber attacks. Now we're supposed to embrace it for defense. It's a little confusing.
It's like anything, right? AI is a powerful tool that can be used for good or evil, and in cybersecurity, it's becoming essential on both sides of the battlefield. The reports we've been analyzing really emphasize the importance of leveraging AI for defense, and there are some really exciting developments in this area.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How exactly can AI be used to boost our cybersecurity? Give me some concrete examples.
Okay, so AI-powered security tools. They can analyze massive amounts of data in real time, looking for patterns and anomalies that might indicate a cyber attack. It's like having a super-powered security guard who can spot a threat before it even reaches your door.
That sounds pretty amazing, but how does that actually work in practice?
Well, imagine a network intrusion detection system powered by AI. It can constantly monitor network traffic, analyzing millions of data points every second. It can learn what normal traffic looks like for your organization and then flag any deviations from that norm.
So it's not just looking for known attack patterns, it's also learning and adapting to new threats as they emerge. It's like it's constantly evolving, getting smarter.
Exactly. And these AI-powered systems can go even further. They can identify malicious code even if it's never been seen before by analyzing its behavior and comparing it to known malware.
It's like having a digital detective who can sniff out a cyber criminal hiding in a crowd. It can tell the good guys from the bad guys just by how they act.
That's a good analogy. But it's not just about detection. AI can also be used to automate response measures, containing and neutralizing threats more quickly and effectively than humans ever could.
So it's like having a rapid response team that's always on standby, ready to jump into action the moment an attack is detected.
Precisely. And this speed is absolutely crucial in today's threat landscape. Remember those zero-day vulnerabilities we talked about? The faster you can respond to a threat, the less damage it can do.
This is all starting to make sense. AI really does seem like a game changer in cybersecurity. But I can't help but feel a little uneasy about relying so heavily on technology. What about the human element?
You're right to bring that up. AI is a powerful tool, but it's not a silver bullet. We still need skilled security professionals to design, implement, and manage these AI-powered systems and to interpret the data they generate. It's still a human-machine partnership. We need to make sure we're using AI responsibly and ethically.
Okay, that makes me feel a little better. It's not just about handing over the keys to the machines and hoping for the best. What else can we do to prepare for the challenges ahead?
Well, remember our conversation about quantum computing. That's another area where proactive measures are essential. We talked about transitioning to quantum-safe encryption, but what does that actually look like in practice?
Yeah, that part felt a little abstract to me. Give me something concrete I can wrap my head around.
It's a multifaceted process, but it starts with a thorough assessment. You need to understand your current cryptographic dependencies. What encryption algorithms are you using? Where is your sensitive data stored? Which systems and applications are most critical to your operations?
So it's like taking inventory of your digital assets and figuring out which ones are most vulnerable to a quantum attack. Like what needs the most protection.
Exactly. Once you have a clear picture of your cryptographic landscape, you can start exploring those quantum-resistant algorithms we discussed earlier.
Remind me about those, again, those quantum-resistant algorithms.
Sure. These are algorithms that are specifically designed to resist attacks from both classical computers and those super-powered quantum computers of the future. Some promising candidates include lattice-based cryptography, code-based cryptography, and multivariate polynomial cryptography.
Okay, those are the ones. But replacing all our existing algorithms with these new quantum-safe versions sounds like a massive undertaking, especially for large organizations with complex systems. Where do you even begin?
You're right, it can be. That's why it's important to start planning now. Develop a phased migration plan, prioritize critical systems and data, and work closely with your technology vendors to ensure a smooth transition.
Don't wait until the quantum computers are at your doorstep. Got it. What else should we be doing to prepare for this quantum future?
Well, it's not just about algorithms. You also need to ensure your key management systems are up to date and that you're rotating encryption keys more frequently. Think of it like changing the locks on your house regularly. It just makes it harder for someone to break in.
Okay, so AI and quantum-safe encryption are two major pillars of our 2025 cybersecurity strategy. But we're not done yet, are we? What else should we be focusing on?
You're right, there's more. The cloud is another area that demands attention. As more organizations migrate their operations to the cloud, securing those environments becomes paramount. You're essentially entrusting your data and applications to someone else's infrastructure, so you need to make sure it's just as secure, if not more so, than your own on-premises systems.
That makes sense. But what are some of the key challenges in cloud security? What should we be watching out for?
One of the biggest challenges is misconfigurations. These are often unintentional errors that can create vulnerabilities that attackers can exploit. It's like leaving a window open in your cloud castle, inviting the cyber thieves in.
So how do we avoid these misconfigurations? It seems like human error is inevitable, especially when you're dealing with complex cloud environments.
Well, that's where robust security policies and compliance frameworks come in. You need to establish clear guidelines for configuring cloud environments, enforce those policies consistently, and regularly audit your systems to ensure they're meeting those standards.
It's like having a building code for your cloud infrastructure, making sure everything is built securely from the ground up.
That's a great analogy. And of course, continuous monitoring is essential. You need to be constantly vigilant, looking for any signs of suspicious activity in your cloud environments.
So even if you build your cloud castle securely, you still need guards on the walls, watching for intruders.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. It's not about relying on any one technology or tactic. It's about building a layered, multifaceted approach to security. It's like a security onion, layers upon layers.
You're absolutely right. It's about defense in depth. And another critical layer in that defense is threat intelligence. Remember we talked about this earlier.
Refresh my memory. What exactly is threat intelligence?
Threat intelligence is essentially the process of gathering, analyzing, and sharing information about potential cyber threats. Think of it like having a network of spies, gathering intel on the enemy's movements so you can anticipate their next attack.
So instead of just reacting to attacks after they happen, we're trying to get ahead of the curve and prevent them from happening in the first place. We're playing offense as well as defense. Exactly. Threat intelligence can come from various sources, including government agencies, security researchers, industry groups, and even your own internal security team. By sharing this information, we can collectively stay ahead of those emerging threats.
Okay, so it's like a global cybersecurity alliance, everyone working together to share information and build a stronger defense. But what kinds of things are we sharing? What does this threat intelligence actually look like?
Threat intelligence can include information about specific attack tactics and techniques, indicators of compromise that might signal an ongoing attack, known vulnerabilities and exploits, even profiles of specific threat actors, their motivations, and their capabilities.
Well, that's a lot of information. But how does this actually help organizations protect themselves? How do they use this intelligence?
Well, it helps them understand the tactics, techniques, and procedures of attackers, allowing them to anticipate and mitigate threats more effectively. It's like having a playbook for the cyber battlefield, knowing the enemy's strategies before they even launch their attack.
This all sounds very high-tech and sophisticated. But what about those of us who aren't security experts? Is there anything we can do to protect ourselves in this increasingly complex digital world?
Absolutely. In fact, one of the most effective things you can do is often overlooked: cyber hygiene.
Ah, yes. The digital equivalent of washing your hands and brushing your teeth.
Exactly. It's about those basic but essential practices that can significantly reduce your risk of a cyber attack.
Give me a refresher on those cyber hygiene essentials. What do
Yeah.
we need to remember?
Okay, so here are a few key things. Use strong, unique passwords for every online account, and consider using a password manager to help you keep track of them. Enable multi-factor authentication whenever possible. It adds an extra layer of security by requiring a second form of verification, like a code sent to your phone. Keep your software up to date. Those updates often include security patches that fix known vulnerabilities. Be cautious about phishing emails and messages. Don't click on links or open attachments from senders you don't trust, and always verify requests for sensitive information through another channel. Back up your data regularly. If you do fall victim to a ransomware attack, you'll be glad you have a recent backup. And finally, report any suspicious activity to your IT department or security team.
It's the cyber equivalent of locking your doors, being aware of your surroundings, and calling the authorities if you see something suspicious. Simple, but effective.
Exactly. And the best part is these cyber hygiene practices are within everyone's reach. You don't need to be a tech expert or have a massive security budget to implement them.
So no excuses. Everyone has a role to play in building a more resilient digital future.
That's right. Cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive into cybersecurity trends shaping 2025, what's the key takeaway you want listeners to walk away with? What's the one thing you want them to remember?
The most important message I want to leave you with is this. While the future of cybersecurity may seem daunting, it's not hopeless. By being proactive, informed, and prepared, we can mitigate risks and build a more secure digital future for ourselves and our organizations.
It's about embracing those advancements in technology, like AI and quantum-safe encryption, but also remembering those fundamental cyber hygiene practices that are within everyone's reach.
It's about striking that balance, right?
Exactly. It's a balance of innovation and vigilance.
Well said. All right, folks, that's it for our deep dive into cybersecurity trends for 2025. We've explored the threats, the solutions, and everything in between. Hopefully, you're feeling more informed and empowered to navigate this evolving digital landscape. Remember, knowledge is power, and proactive security is the best defense. Stay safe out there in the digital world.